Hi, I'm Richard Friedman, and welcome to my video cartoon for September 23rd, 2025. Here we have President Trump in the Oval Office here, practicing on his Leticia James dartboard. There it is. There's Leticia James in the dartboard. Here's President Trump with his dart, and he's practicing there. And here is the introduction to the cartoon. Here it goes. And that's Richard Trump on his Leticia James dartboard after replacing top Virginia prosecutor with loyalist Lindsay Halligan, who has no prosecution experience and practiced insurance law. Okay, so she was an aide in the White House at this point, and now she's given the responsibility of running this Virginia district office. Okay, and here is the formal introduction here, and it goes like this. Given reportedly, Trump officials had been pushing U.S. Attorney for the Eastern District of Virginia, Eric Siebert, to bring charges against James, despite investigators failing to find clear evidence that she committed mortgage fraud. They investigated her for about 5 months, really diligently, and they couldn't come up with enough evidence to indict her. And President Trump was adamant that they didn't do as good a job as they should have done, and he wanted more, and that was the friction. It appears that was the friction that developed with Siebert, with this prosecutor Siebert at the Virginia district, and basically his gripe against him. President Trump had said when pressed why he was being fired, he basically said that there were 2 bad guys who supported his nomination, Democrats, and when he found out about that, he just couldn't have them on board in his team, and they didn't qualify for the team on the basis of when he found out from some leak in the Virginia office or something like that, and he didn't know it before, but when he found out that these 2 quote bad guys, he calls them, Democrats, had voted for his position, for him to be appointed, confirmed in this position. That was it for him. And that's President Trump's line. Siebert's line is that he resigned, and he resigned because he saw that the cards were lined up against him, and it was hopeless, and he didn't want to go through this hassle of having to defend himself consistently and this and that. So he said, I'm out of here, and he resigned. And those are the 2 stories. You decide which story to go with. So I'm going to continue here just to make sure I cover all the bases here. Okay, so Eric Siebert to bring charges against James despite investigators failing to find clear evidence that that she committed mortgage fraud. That's what they were saying. It was mortgage fraud. Somehow it was, she gave 2 addresses or something like that on her mortgage application, 2 primary addresses or something like to that effect, and from a long time ago, and they dug that up, and that was basically the gist of it from what I heard. I could be wrong, but that's basically the gist of it. Okay. And also, reportedly, James had become a target of Trump's since she won a multi-million-dollar judgment against the Trump Organization. Now, she did take the Trump Organization to court in a civil fraud lawsuit that involved inflating the value of his assets on financial statements, tremendously, millions of dollars above what they were worth, and that was they alleged that. That's what was alleged, and what happened was that they got a judgment given what happened in a civil. This was in a criminal case. It was a civil fraud lawsuit that involved inflating value of assets on financials to given an appeals court, okay? An appeals court last month tossed the $500 million penalty, saying it was just too much for that caliber of a wrongdoing, okay? So it wasn't criminal, it was civil. But not the verdict. They still maintained that fraud was committed, basically in terms of elevating the assets on statements of what they realistically should have been. So they did maintain the fraud, but they dropped the award, the penalty, the judgment of $500 million, so significantly less, and not the verdict. Okay, and President Trump's replacement for either fired or resigned Siebert, I call it, he's either fired Siebert or resigned Siebert. You decide on that, depending if you want to take President Trump's word, or if you want to take the former District of Virginia DA Siebert's word. Depends whose word you want to take. That's your choice. I give you both sides of the coin there, fired or resigned. So that's okay. Okay. Depending on who you believe is White House aide, and then we go for either fired or depending on who you believe. Okay, and White House aide Lindsey Halligan. Now what's happening here is President Trump again is replacing. I said this in the introduction. He's being replaced by Lindsey Halligan as basically a temporary position until President Trump can get him confirmed, I assume, by the Senate, and I assume he will get her confirmed because their track record in getting President Trump's nominees confirmed in the Senate is very good. So I figure that Lindsey, she will probably be confirmed. I figure that way. Regardless of her qualifications or anything like that, former Trump personal lawyer who led in her position to the effort to scrutinize the Smithsonian Institute for Improper Ideology. So she was the force behind the thrust of that scrutiny of the Smithsonian to purge it of improper ideology. That's what she had been there, okay? And she had been President Trump's former personal attorney, okay? And presently she was a White House aide. So I don't know if she was presently involved with the Smithsonian Institute, but she has a history of working on that project of removing improper ideology, that's quote, improper ideology from it, So it could be books, or it could be anything, or slides, movies, or even statues of people that President Trump, whose ideology President Trump doesn't agree with. So, that's basically the definition of an American. So in that field there, in that scenario, okay, in that world, okay. So here it was. Now here is President Trump. He's got a dart in his hand. You see, here he is, and he's taking aim at the dartboard, which is here. He probably has other dartboards. Like he probably has a Comey dartboard. We'll get to that later. So he probably has a Comey dartboard also somewhere in my world, okay, in my world of Trump, okay, that I created here, okay, all right. So there's the dart, and he's aiming, and here's his. This is a figure that he has in the White House office here, of a cowboy riding a wild horse there with the American flag, going up against the adversity of a wild horse, trying to ride it, holding out the American flag. And President Trump has that in his office. And I just threw this statue, this dartboard in to symbolize, metaphorically you could say, of President Trump's feelings about Leticia James. Okay? And there it was. And now I'm going to read it to you here. So let's just zoom in on Leticia here. There she is. There is the in the Oval Office there. That's that statue of the horse with the cowboy riding the American flag. And here is President Trump with his dart here. Okay, there he is. Okay, and now I'm going to read this to you here. Okay. Okay. This Leticia James is as guilty as hell. And now my Lindsay is going to investigate all her mortgage shit. And that woke rhino Siebert will be investigated too, hiding evidence against James. You know, that's just a question mark here, you see? I put a question mark on that. You know, that's how President Trump sometimes, you know, he has a way of writing things. And there's the question mark right here. Okay, there's the question mark. Okay, there it is. There's the question mark. Okay, yeah, all right. Hiding evidence against James, question mark. I have just begun my retribution for the American people. You know, there it is. And there was President Trump in the Oval Office that I kind of used it to symbolize his feelings towards this lady here, this prosecutor from New York, James, Leticia James. Okay. Okay. There it was. Okay. Now, here is President Trump's a tweet that President Trump, not a tweet, I shouldn't say tweet, it's not a tweet. He put this up on his Truth Social platform. It's not, you know, we always talk, tweet has become like a word in the English language almost for anything that's put up. But it's not, it shouldn't be that way. People should understand the difference here. And I understand that, and I respect the difference. This is President Trump's Truth Social platform that he put this up on, Truth Social, and there it is. Okay. Okay. And this is word for word from President Donald J. Trump, and he's addressing this to Pam Bondi. Okay. Now what I did here is I took out the people whose names he talked about, and I put it into a glossary behind here that I have here, a glossary. So each time I come to a name, I'm going to turn around. I'm going to kind of just go back and read it to you, the backdrop to how this person got on here. Okay. So Pam. So that's Pam Bondi, U.S. Attorney General. Okay, Pam, I have reviewed over 30 statements and posts saying that essentially, same old story as last time, all talk, no action, nothing is being done. What about Comey, Adam Schiff, Leticia James. So now here it is, Adam Schiff. Adam Schiff was the lead prosecutor in the first impeachment trial of President Trump in 2020, and served in the leading capacity in the second impeachment and in the investigation into the January 6th attack. So that's where that's who Adam Schiff was. I believe he's now a senator. Okay. Now, Leticia James is Leticia James, New York prosecutor who brought a successful civil suit against Donald Trump in 2022 that accused him of overvaluing assets, including real estates, in loan applications. He did this to get better for insurance purposes or whatever it was to help him financially by elevating the asset value in documents. Okay. That he submitted, okay. So that was that overvaluing assets, including real estate, on his loan applications to banks and so forth. Okay. Now, let's go on here, okay? So they're all guilty as hell, but nothing is going to be done. You see, he's really pissed at this. Then we almost put in a Democrat-supported U.S. attorney in Virginia with a really bad Republican past. By Republican past, President Trump means that there were 2 Democrats who President Trump refers to as, quote, bad guys, who voted for this guy Siebert to be confirmed in his position that he had been in, and that means that when he heard that, they said, he's got to go. He's got to go. Okay. A U.S. attorney, and that's what I actually watched a news interview that President Trump was doing. In Virginia, with a really bad Republican past, that's what he means by that. A woke rhino. So the woke rhino here, again, is Eric Siebert, is a woke rhino, top Eastern District of Virginia. Okay, and that's basically it here. And he again he wouldn't bring charges against Leticia James because there wasn't the evidence was not sufficient. So he's now considered to be a woke rhino by President Trump. Okay, and he's the top man. He has 200 people underneath him who work for him. He's like the commander. He is at the thrust of this district, Eastern District of Virginia, which Lindsay Halligan will be taking over. Okay, going from an aide in the White House to now running this huge office responsible for prosecuting potential terrorist actions, terrorist activities, and all that. And she will be at the helm of that now. And I hope she's a quick learner, because up to now the only law experience she was involved in insurance law. So this is a step in a different direction, you could say, to put it mildly. Okay, and now we go to here we go. Was never going to do his job. Woke rhino who's never going to do his job. That's why 2 of the worst damn senators pushed him so hard. 2 of the worst damn senators pushed him so hard. They knew he wasn't going to do much, He even lied to the media and said he quit. We've gone over that. And that we had no case. No, I fired him. And there was a great case. And many layers and legal pundits say so. Legal pundits, a lot of them are not judges or lawyers or went to Harvard Law School. A lot of them haven't. A lot of those legal pundits haven't done that. But anyway, Lindsay is a really good lawyer. She's background is insurance, as I said, insurance. She's a good insurance lawyer. Okay. I'm not here I'm just trying to give you the facts here, folks. You decide. Lindsay it's possible she could do a great quick studier, and who knows, she's certainly a very attractive young woman, and who knows? I mean, I give that in a positive way, thinking of the positive side of the coin and other things. So, and she did rise up to become a White House aide. So, I'm trying to give you the ups and downs, not to patronize or degrade or anything like that. Okay. We can delay any longer. It's killing our It's killing our reputation and credibility by not going after him and prosecuting these people. Okay. They impeached me twice and indicted me 5 times over nothing. Justice must be served now. President DJT. Now, I think I left out one thing here that he mentions, then pushed him. And he goes here and he says, nothing is being done. What about Comey, Adam, Shifty, Schiff? So we have to mention that James Comey, who ran the FBI, and James Comey was former director of the FBI from 2013 to 2017, who President Trump was angry with his FBI investigation into his campaign. They didn't investigate him. They investigated his campaign for a Russian connection, and they were alleging that they were alleging that there was a Russian connection, and it turned out there wasn't, but the Russians were trying things and doing things to influence the election, but there was no connection with the Trump campaign, to the best of my knowledge. Okay, and that's what came out, to the best of my knowledge. Okay, and that was alleged, and once it was found that no action was taken against the campaign or anything like that. And they did, and I think that was President Obama who had that done and ordered Comey to do it. So perhaps Comey might have been taking orders, probably was taking orders from President Obama to protect future elections. So basically, Comey was following orders from the president, the way people follow orders from President Donald Trump. It sounds that way to me, So anyway, just give you that's just a tidbit there, okay. And another thing here I want to just dwell on here is, speaking to reporters on Saturday, President Trump said, if they're not guilty, that's fine. If they are guilty, or if they should be judged, they should be judged, and we have to do it now. Okay, so President, but you could say that about a lot of anybody. If they're not guilty, I mean, you have to bring somebody up to scrutiny. You have to have some sort of in this country, you just can't pick somebody out and say, well, if you're not guilty, it's fine. But you have to have due cause, and that's what our Constitution says here. So there you have that. Okay. Now let's see if we've got everything else here. Oh yeah, and then we have here. This was to Pam Bondi. Now the point I'm making here, and this is a point that I want to make, and this is coming from me. The way I feel about this. Now, what President Trump is setting a precedent in having such a close relationship with his Attorney General and the Justice Department. I think people criticize President Trump for going to sport events with Pam Bondi. Now I say that's cool if they both like baseball games, or they both like football games, or they like hockey games, and they go out. That's fine. I don't see anything wrong with that, as long as they keep it. They don't get into the business aspect of it. But here you have President Trump writing publicly on his Truth Social here to Pam. I'll just refresh. There it is. This is Donald Trump on his Truth Social to Pam. Pam, you see? No Attorney General, the Attorney General Pam Bondi, but he shouldn't even be doing that at all, because this is what our country was based upon, is separation here. So when you establish this kind of relationship between the Justice Department and the president, it almost becomes a kangaroo court, it's not a question of innocent, but of the evidence. It's a question of the mood and the interpretation here of individuals. It becomes a partnership. And now you can't. It's just bad democracy, and it leads to no democracy if you follow it to a logical conclusion, because what ends up is putting this Justice Department here under the wings of the White House. So what I did was, to symbolize that, I drew a bridge. You see, I drew a bridge, and this is this is a bridge that Donald Trump built. Again, metaphorically here, from the White House here, across to the Justice Department. So this is something that could carry out through the ages, this relationship. But other presidents we have in the future will look back at this, and with Nixon, with John Mitchell, I think John Mitchell was the Attorney General during Nixon's time, and he had to resign. And this is what led to that. In a way, you could argue that led to encourage this Watergate thing. You could look that up Google that. I'm not going to give you a history lesson. As much as I love history, I'm a cartoonist. I'm not a history lecturer. So you can look up again. I think it was John Mitchell, district attorney during the Watergate era with President Richard Nixon. The deep trouble that he got into here and what happened there. I never forget his wife Martha. Boy, we need a lot of more Marthas around today. I'll never forget Martha. That was his wife. Martha Mitchell. I don't think anybody was around then will forget her. So, and again, you look it up and Google it if you want to learn more about that. So here it was, this was my symbolic representation, and this is called the Donald J. Trump White House / Justice Bridge. And this is the bridge here between the White House and the Justice Department. There you have it. Okay. There it is. All right, thank you for watching my video. God bless you. Hang in there, and I'll see you next time. Bye.